Hello traders, this is Blake Morrow. You are listening to the Daily Roundup webinar. Hope everybody's having a great trading session. Really, we've seen a fairly quiet session, but what we have seen is some currencies pivot from some key levels of support and resistance. So one of them would be the euro. And, we talked about the euro rejecting this 618 retracement when we were on the FACE webinar a little bit earlier. So I think what we have to realize regarding the euro dollar at this moment is that we are making a lower high on this 4-hour chart. You can see that lower high. And then also, if you look at the daily trend line, this is the big multi-year daily trend line we've talked about on multiple occasions. All right, we made a false breakout a couple of weeks back, and then now we're challenging and failing again. Do I think that this is going to eventually get broken? Yes, I do. We're struggling right now, so then that means you got to be a little bit cautious as we're up here. I would think that maybe a dip back down towards the 112.50 level might offer a better opportunity to be long if we can even get down there. A couple guys in my office are talking about this euro issuance that's going to be out because of a merger acquisition. And then I'm sorry, it's part of a ExxonMobil debt offering. It's not a merger and acquisition. That was actually the last euro issuance that I can remember prior to this. But because of that, you might see a little bit of euro selling pressure as that happens here in the next couple of days. And if that's the case, then the euro might actually come down a little bit. And actually looking at where we're stopping on, whether it's the euro or some of these other currencies, that makes a lot of sense. So speaking of some other currencies, and one that I think you need to pay attention to is the US dollar Canadian. I've bought and sold this twice now already, both times near or just below the 135 level. But the reason why I'm playing it on the long side down here is because twofold. We see this bounce here at the 200-day moving average. Okay, that supported the 200-day moving average, I believe, is offering some support near term. So therefore, you might get a bounce back to the 135.30. What I'm thinking at this stage is just to if we can get some sort of pullback below 135, I don't mind playing it on the long side down here, knowing that 200-day moving average is just below the market. Also, what's going to be really important by the end of the day, so I don't know if this is really going to take place. I don't know if this is going to take place before being able to get dip back below 135. But if we close above 135, that's going to lead us to a false breakdown. So that's something that I'm trying to pay a little bit of attention to, especially if the euro does pull back from the 113.30, 113.40s, and we pull back below 113. That's going to probably allow the dollar Canadian to catch a bid down here. Okay, let's take a look at some of these other majors. Like here's the cable. Like the euro. Now you'll notice right here. Let's look at these fibs right here. Okay. This is the 50% retracement, and we may have, because you notice how we were respecting the 50% retracement, we broke above it. And let me get rid of this 38%, this longer term one. I don't need that for right now. So you notice how we hit that 618 retracement. I'm sorry, this is the 618. Let me get rid of that too. The 50% retracement, notice how we made a false break above it. If we get back below it, that ends up being a false breakout. So again, this is kind of like the euro. If the euro shows failure at the 113.40 level, roughly, cable gives us a false breakout, squeezing out all the shorts, and then it reverses. That's gonna play into that dollar Canadian, higher as well. Let's take a look at the Aussie. So the Aussie, right? You have this fib here, 618, resistance, failure from resistance. So that's important. Kiwi, like the cable, maybe a false breakout above the 618. If we dip back below, let's just call it 65 cents, then we have a false breakout. So again, I think the dollar could potentially start to gain some strength or bounce back a little bit. It could, but if you look at the dollar index as a whole, I mean, this is a bearish wedge pattern. Whoops, I didn't want to do that. Hold on. Okay. I'm sorry, not a bearish wedge. It's a bearish pennant pattern. But that doesn't mean that the dollar index can't do this, right? Something like that before. Yeah. California reports biggest daily jump in virus cases. Well, that's not good. %1.2%. 5,000 new virus cases. Wow. Reports an additional 65 virus deaths. Yeah, it's tough, between Arizona, California, and Texas. Some ugly numbers. Matter of fact, let me see if I can do this for you really quick. Give me 1 second while we're here. These don't, the CVID, that's what it is. These don't update immediately because, this is all coming from different sources. So it's not like a news source directly that like some of the economic data, but this is Bloomberg. This is actually really interesting. I'm going to show you really quick. Let's go into the United States. Actually, let me go to the regions, countries, get rid of these really quick. Where's Italy? Oh, there's Italy. Okay. So now let's go into states. What's really interesting is this is cases, right? So let's look at California, Texas, all the hot spots, right? Arizona. Where's Florida? Did I miss it already? There it is. Yeah, that's interesting, right? So that's cases. Here's deaths, right? But I think what's really interesting is you go to, to cases and you see how, Florida or New York has really, leveled the curve. And these hot spots right now are not scary, right? So, for those of you that are kind of curious on what's happening with, COVID cases around the U.S., and what I'm seeing, that's it. All right. So anyway, what am I going to say? Dollar index. I think it could bounce a little bit. I don't think the dollar if you're short the dollar, you should be necessarily concerned with the dollar. But I think if equities actually pull back a little bit, that's what's going to give the dollar what I would consider an artificial bid near term. If you look at the dollar yen, and as a matter of fact, the dollar yen looks like it was pulling back a little bit and we're bouncing, but the dollar yen should find some resistance right here. I think if you are going to be a seller of dollar yen, you want to be a seller of dollar yen around the 106.55, somewhere in that neighborhood. Let me see, a couple questions. Alan said no audio. Alan says, does everyone else have audio? No, some of you guys. So did you guys hear me? Could you guys hear me? It was just a little bit earlier. Okay. Yeah, it was probably earlier because I hadn't started yet. Rick said, can you push recoveries? Too late, you moved screen. Oh, push recoveries. What do you mean? I got it on this chart. You want to see that? Recoveries? Yeah. Let's go over to recovered. And let's get rid of cases. Oh, it looks like it only does recovered for. It looks like it only does recovered for countries. There you go. Sorry, Rick. Oliver says, hey, Blake, do you mind explaining how you identify false breakouts? I keep getting caught out. Okay, so for me, let's just real quick, let's talk about, well, since the dollar yen is here, so this is good, right? So when I'm trading like momentum type of trading, this would be a good example, even though I didn't take this trade today because I felt like I missed it. It was already going and I'm like, what the hell did I miss? And then it already had been dropping. But when I see a trade like this, and this is support, right? This is the support level. If I try to catch this momentum, it's usually a scalp. It's like, you know, I get in and out and I make 5, 10, 8, 20, something like that, right? Then what I try to play is I try to play like a retest of the I try to play a retest of the breakdown. Like in this case, it'd be a retest of the breakdown. So when it gets up here to 106.55, I might think about selling it, right? And then if for some reason I get short the dollar yen, and then it starts getting back up above, like let's say I short at 55 and we get back into the 70s, I might, you know, say, okay, that was a false breakdown. I'm getting out, right? And then I reverse from there. So that's what I then I realize that is a false breakdown in this case. So for me, it's recognizing that it's an important resistance or important support. So let's go over to the Aussie. Like this would be a good example in the Aussie. So let's say I know this is really important resistance up here at this 69.80 level. Let's say we rallied above that resistance, and I played it for a few pips on the upside, but then we come back down, we get slammed down back below 69.60. I would say that's a false breakout, and then I would be looking to short, and that would be like the only trade I'd be willing to do at that point. Okay. Dieter asked, Blake, what about the US dollar, South African rand, and the S&P? You know, here's the rand. Okay. We've stalled the last couple of days since I did that blog. And what's really interesting about that is if you look at the S&P has basically bounced a little bit. So what I'd be looking at now is if well, you can do it this way. If the South African rand breaks above this 38% retracement, which comes basically 1750, breaks above 1750, then you just automatically start thinking, okay, I'm going to short equities. Or if equities really come under pressure, you know that the rand is going to be a breakout above 1750, right? Jason, last question. In your career, have you ever seen the market like this ignore like this before, that just goes up and ignores everything? Also, do you believe with global money printing that the market may hit new highs for years to come? I think that with all the excess liquidity that is being provided, will stocks continue to hit highs? I think so, because you don't have anywhere else to put your money. But near term, do I still think that markets can come down? Yeah, I do, and because I think that we're still faced with an issue where COVID is going to weigh on global growth for some time to come. I personally think so. So that means that the S&P, even though we are back up at these levels, I think we're going to still correct at some point before we head higher again. Now, one of the things that you asked, have I ever seen this? Yeah, I mean, look, it happens most times when the markets are just grinding higher. Right now, the market is ignoring a lot of the fundamentals because they have to. They have to chase the market higher because a lot of people missed those lows around 2200. Personally, I did too. I was looking for a little bit lower low towards 2000 before I really went, full on long. And I think a lot of people were kind of waiting for the same thing. And what we've had is we've had a situation where the market's really rallied the last 2 quarters, and it really hasn't stopped. So now you got FOMO, price action, right? You got everybody chasing the markets higher, and they're going to continue to chase the market higher going into quarter end, at least, which you're talking about another week, okay? Or week and a half. So anyway, but do I think that, you know, the markets will find some sort of dose of reality? I do. And I don't know what's going to be the cause of it. What's going to be the trigger? Personally, I think it's going to be something election related, you know, that's going to cause a reversal in stocks. But, you know, to push us lower, because I think the market's going to have to come to grips with the idea that a Democrat might be in office. And there's a strong possibility of that. So the markets will have to take that into consideration. Anyway, I've gone on a lot longer than I thought I was going to. Guys, if you are listening to this after the fact, and you're not listening to us live, then that means you're probably not a ForexAnalytix subscriber. So make sure you subscribe and jump with us in the chat rooms. Or, you know, even if you're using the light version, whatever version you're using, make sure you try us out. So this way you can actually listen to this as I'm broadcasting versus, you know, after the fact. So have a great one. Thanks everybody for your support, and I'll catch you guys in the chat room. Talk to you later.